LinkedIn, you call yourself the CEO of work from home jokes, which is probably the best job title I've seen on LinkedIn. And the videos you create, they really, I don't know, for anyone who has ever been in any corporate setting, you understand it immediately. So without further ado, I would just ask Liz to share some of your work with us.
I'm out of office. The good news is, I'm out of office. Most of you have only seen me in a blazer. Newsflash, I'm in a string bikini. Here are 10 things I'm thankful for. I can't say the smell of the office quite compares to the smell of the great outdoors, but here's who you can reach out to if you need an urgent response. I may not have a response for you too quickly, but I do have this haiku. Picture the most pasta you've ever eaten. Now double it. Yep, that's where I'm at. If you don't already follow me on IG, you should. In the meantime, please enjoy this meme of a chihuahua sipping on a glass of champagne. As you're reading this, I'm likely riding bareback on a camel through the sands of Morocco. Pause, Natalie. For those of you who don't know, that's peace in Espanol.
Peace in Espanol. I love that ending so much. And also I have seen so many of these emails, people bragging about travel, people sending GIFs with their out of office. I mean, I know you take this all from reality, but it just, the way you put it together just strikes me because it's so true and so funny at the same time. So how did you actually land at that? I mean, you have a journey that brought you there. Where did the idea behind Corporate Natalie actually originate?
Yeah, so it was very unintentional. I started, just making TikToks. They weren't even corporate related during COVID, when I think a lot of us were experiencing, boredom, loneliness, maybe a little curiosity about what we're passionate about. And I took to TikTok and started just making short form bits. I remember sending one that wasn't even corporate related to my friends and being like, I'm going to be famous, just so you know. As a complete joke. And then, one after another kind of went viral, we call it, of poking fun at this remote work kind of, new normal that we called it then. And we still call it now. And it was an area that wasn't really talked about. And I think it leans into, is corporate a dirty word? I think talking about your corporate job just wasn't the norm. And then we're in our bedrooms and you're seeing your boss's wife walk in the back of the screen in her robe. And you're like, I didn't even know he was married. I didn't even know, all these personal details start coming to light just by nature of being in your home for working. And I think there was a lot of comedy that came with that. And I just tried to provide a bit of levity in a dark time.
And maybe he wasn't married. We never know. But you actually had a job back then.
Yeah, I did have a job then. Yes, there was, I was working in consulting. And I think consulting, going from the rigid travel, you show up in your suit, you're sweating. I was traveling across the country to travel is halted and completely stopped. I think that was really a hard pill to swallow for the consulting world. And it was funny.
When were you so viral that you decided to actually not have that job anymore? When was the virality at a point where you said this might be a livelihood?
Definitely. So it wasn't necessarily, virality, but it was more so, I got, and I remember at the time I got an opportunity to go act in a show in LA, and it was a month and a half long production. And it was an opportunity that might never come again. And I was in a space where I came from risk and financial advisory. I'm super cognizant of my finances. I'm aware, I would never take a risk of leaving my 401k, leaving, my health benefits, all these things. And I really sat with it and weighed that decision very heavily and decided to take the leap and step away and know that I could make money from this. And it was a business and I could go act in a show and try something new. And I never will regret that decision. It was the best decision I made.
Wow. And that's especially courageous because you just said you are usually not that kind of type. You're conservative about your finances. You care for your future and then become a creator. It sounds like it's the opposite of what people would recommend others who are careful about their future. You did it.
I am very corporate at my core. And I think when people ask, mostly Gen Z who are starting out on TikTok, will ask me when should I leave my job? I'm like, don't. Like I waited till the very bitter end. I had zero PTO left. It was just do or die. And I basically had to leave. Like, so yeah, I think stability is important.
You now have over 1 million followers across TikTok and Instagram. Were named to the Forbes 30 under 30 list. Congrats. You have brand partnerships with companies like Dell, Sophie. Your videos also now, they go a little bit out of the corporate world. And it's also, it's almost like, how do I navigate life? And you even sell merch that is related to that, to like remote work, working from home. By the way, a perfect guest for us, of course. How did you actually build following? Like you said, you went viral, which I guess is also a term that needs to be defined in a way, or means something else to all of us. But like, where was this like a long game that you actually planned on? Do you make a business plan, say I need to reach that amount of people following me over that amount of time? Or was it something that happened so quickly that you never actually thought about it?
So it was very unintentional. And I think because I had my full-time job and I was working, 50 to 60 hours a week at the time, this was just a side thing. It was a passion project. I could go a week without posting and I wouldn't have this guilt that I probably feel now. And I think that lack of pressure when I first started allowed me to grow in a super organic way. I wasn't forcing videos. I wasn't setting up my ring light being like, I have to film. Oh my God, what am I going to say? Mm-hmm. It was more like I experienced this hilarious thing on Zoom where they were unmuted and they said something. Okay, let me make a video about that now or in a couple of days. And I think, that lack of prescriptiveness around the content creation process allowed me to be a very like natural follow for people. And I was in the corporate world and it was like relatable and funny. And I'm very thankful that it started that way, because I think a lot of creators, when they're struggling and hustling and trying to hit numbers and, I need to get, when like, it wasn't, my brand deals weren't keeping the lights on. It was like, oh my God, I'm so excited. Dell reached out. Like, I can't believe this. This is such an honor. And I think having it as that side project was what made it so successful in the beginning.
Mm-hmm. You already talked a little bit about your morning routine. Glad you didn't file. How close was it actually? Did you slip or did you just hang on to it?
No, I just like grabbed the sides. Like I would just like misstepped a little bit and got scared. And the people next to me were a little scared. It was just like kind of a more awkward moment than anything. It was, yeah.
But you're in general an early morning person, right? Waking up in the AM 5:30, is that right?
So I never was. And I think when I was working my full-time job and the content creation became basically a full-time job, I was super unhealthy. I was like really just in kind of a dark space. I would sleep until my first meeting. I was tired all the time. I wasn't moving my body. And I didn't have the time to. And I think now that I'm able to control my schedule and, it's important to me to have all the hours in the day and I want to wake up early and I want to feel good. And so that's just become a priority for me actually this year. Like I'm a big goal setter and I said, I want to work out and be more fit and, just feel healthier. And I stuck to it. I've been sticking to it since.
You have a very structured approach. Filming days, you told us, are Tuesdays and Thursdays, and you have become an early morning person, work out, then go to work. Amazing. But the dark stuff is still living on in your videos. And I wanted to ask Liz if you could share the Instagram video about the coworker who has been at the company forever with us. This is the second video we wanted to share about who is actually behind the computer, what you just talked about, right? When you are in that dark space, but people can't really see it because you're sort of like brushing yourself up. There was this New Yorker cover where in the ring light, the person looks perfect. And then the rest of the apartment is just this amazing, crazy mess. And I think you put that in just 2 images. I was actually referring to a full Instagram video that you did that resonates so well with me. The coworker that has been in a company forever will try to start that one.
That's for sure. Back in, gosh, what was it? Must have been 92. You definitely weren't born yet. Not to make this about me, of course, but I definitely think I have the most tribal knowledge of the culture of this company. Gosh, those were the days. Oh, that reminds me, we were on the client side back in 87. Our key decision maker goes, yup, Just like he just said that. He goes, yep. You had to be there. Not how we used to do it. Nope. I miss the old ways. Good old days, man. You're the new intern. Fresh blood. I remember when I first joined. Oh, it was years ago. I just miss how we used to do it. There were performance reviews. It was get up or get out. My boss once looked me in the eyes, said, if it's not on my desk in 35 minutes, consider yourself fired, and slapped me around. And I digress. This isn't how things have always been.
Oh my God. When I look at this, your timing is so amazing. And but I'm also thinking this must be so much work. Like, how often do you actually record these bits and pieces? Or is this really just one take, boom?
Well, I film it all in one sitting for sure. I'm not like, let me get up and get lunch in between the first bit and the second bit. I definitely bang it out in one sitting. But it's always interesting. It's like I've interacted with people of all ages in my companies, and I've seen these people, but it's just funny. It's like, I'm 26 years old. People are always like, how do you think of this? I don't really know. Like, it just kind of comes to me. And I'll use like experiences from like a year and a half ago, and I'll like amplify it and elevate it. But yeah, it's fun. The content creation process is super fun. And I always say the day I don't enjoy it, the day I wake up and I am miserable to set up the ring light and film, is like the day I need to reevaluate what I'm doing.
It's just brilliant, and the way you come up with material and then deliver on it. You said you're an amazing observer. You remember these moments, and then you're able to just boil them down and bring them together in these phrases that come up in that video. They have all been said before, but never in that density. And I think that's what makes me laugh so much, because there's just so much delivery. It's like almost everything is a punchline. And I wonder, when you go into a corporate office today, which you do because you work with corporates, like, how do you, I would imagine if I were you, that I would just like, sometimes I'd be like, that's material. Or I would just burst out laughing, be like, oh my God, I'm so going to use this. Can I use this, sir? Like, how do you actually navigate a corporate office today?
Oh, totally. My, brand manager who's on this call listening will go and speak at conferences or join Zoom calls. We do everything together, and we'll keep a note of like, oh my God, that was hilarious. We have to make a video on that. And so like having my foot in the corporate space is vital to the success of the content for sure, because I'm witnessing all these things happening. I'm witnessing the awkward talk at a conference, the catching up with an old coworker, just all these things that like are so mundane yet so funny. Like, I think that's why The Office was hilarious. They never left that building the entire time. They're in the most drab workwear ever. And we view that as like the funniest, mockumentary series to date. So it's interesting that like such a small interaction can become a whole video.
What was you just were at a bunch of conferences? We don't want to name them, but is there something you want to recall that you saw and were like, yep, that's going to be in my next set the coworker video?
Yeah, I mean, we can totally name them. I don't care. But we went to a like a keynote speaker at the beginning of this conference. And it was like everyone, it's classic tech where there's, hundreds of people in the crowd, and the guy gets up, and the whole bit, my friend actually did a bit on it. He just gets up and he's like, AI. And the crowd erupts. Like, it's just like so classic tech, like and it was, so those bits are funny. And I'm glad I got to be a part of that and just see they have like a live demo going on. They're like, I'm going to hand it over to show you how AI can help you. And I'm like, this is such good material. I love this. I want to be the demo guy.
I would like to hand it over to you all now to show you how Menti works, because we would like to know from you, and this is our question to the audience today, do you think corporate is a dirty word? Why or why not? Well, it's part of your brand, Natalie, so it's kind of it's actually kind of mean to ask you that.
Hurtful, yeah, seeing these pop up, but that's okay.
Maybe you're going to be eco-conscious, impactful, Natalie, next year.
Brand, yeah.
What do you think when you look at these responses? Like, there seems to be a little bit of a bad connotation to it. There seems to be a bad ring to it.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I brought this up. We were in a prep call and we were trying to think about, what to what to make this talk about. And I was like, is corporate a dirty word? I've been asked it, like, why corporate Natalie? Maybe if you're going into more lifestyle content, you still want to do the corporate bit. And for me as a creator, I think it's been absolutely vital. I'm able to partner with these B2B brands. I'm able to, do content work on LinkedIn. I think it has opened up a lot of avenues and almost in a way destigmatize the word. I think now, like, we'll hear Gen Z say, like, that's so corporate of you. So I think, it has that kind of traditional, I agree with what people are saying, like connotation of, rigid structure, corporate, stuffy. But I think now with COVID, it's interesting to see how that's shifting and how, you talk about this every day on the pod, like how people are, just shifting the mindset. And work is, you have the beanbags in the office and people want you to have fun at work. People want you to work in hybrid settings, work from where your bed's right there. So I'm trying, I think corporate is, a good word, and I can't find another Instagram handle. So it's going to stay for the foreseeable future. Am I frozen? Is Felix frozen? I think Felix might be frozen, and that's totally fine. I'll just take it from here. Oh no, here we go. There.
The hotel Wi-Fi was not happy about me talking about corporate hotels, but I heard you, and I think it's fascinating what you said, because the fact that it actually helps you, that it helps people to work with you, is, I find, absolutely fascinating. I never thought about this being an advantage for you to navigate the world that you are making fun of. And I also think that what you're looked at by the corporate world is a bridge. People see you as a bridge between generations. And I come from journalism, and I just met the director of my journalism school that I attended here in Germany, and she said, you know what the biggest problem is in the workspace in my peer group right now? It's the generational conflict. It's the old journalists and the young journalists, and you just don't get along. It's crazy. It's more intense than I've ever seen in my whole life. And now it's funny because you have been sort of like called an ambassador for Gen Z, and you're invited to conferences to talk about Gen Z, and you create videos about what it's like to be a Gen Zer in the workplace. And I would actually like to share one of those videos right now. And I think you recorded a second one just a few days ago. This is the first one, giving Gen Z feedback. I started crying a little bit when I watched these two videos in a row, because of course they're made for my target audience, I think.
I love how
let's try it again.
Thank you. Assume you're telling the truth. Like, we're not assuming you're lying ever. So you don't have to finish every sentence with "on God." So our Slack channel is public to the company, so people can see what you say. It's not like a private sort of diary. I just want to make sure that did you say, left my vape in the big stall on floor 6? Can anyone grab #withdrawals? Was that... Team happy hour is a fun time, a good time for bonding, and sometimes it gets a little crazy. When you started shotgunning, but you were biting into the beers and shotgunning them within the bar, we did have to leave as a group. When you said at the end of the call, slay, it delegitimizes our work as a financial institution. I love that you're a DJ. I'm a fan. You have a fan right here. When you promote your DJ sets, instead of replying to a company-wide email sent by our CEO, perhaps telling a friend in the break room would be more of an appropriate way to go about that. I like to lay down. I'm a sedentary creature. Sometimes I'm like, I'm taking this call from the couch. When you were laying with your eyes kind of fluttering shut, and then you did fall asleep, I don't think it was the best reflection of you as an employee here. I love being friendly with my clients. But also, it's not just the crack up. That was my serotonin for the day. Thank you. Finally, we got you.
You got me with the passive aggressiveness in the tone, and the absolute politeness in everything that's being said. It just completely gets me every time. And you just spoke about Gen Z in the workplace at South by Southwest, Forbes Future of Work Summit, where I had the chance to meet you. Because I was immediately fascinated by everything you said on stage. And all these stages are there for you to step up and say, how can you as a corporate organization attract and retain talent from the Gen Z generation? They want to know that from you. What do you tell them? What do you tell all the people that sit in the audience? You know, they have been at this conference 12 times and now they're listening to you. What do you tell them?
Well, so it's interesting that you say that I sort of act as a bridge and like between generations. I'm honored for sure because like I am technically cusp Gen Z. I'm a zillennial, yet I'm able to make those videos completely ripping on Gen Z. And I like to say that there's two types of Gen Z: those who started work BC before COVID and AC after COVID. So I was BC before COVID. So I got that, year and a half of experience in the gritty, traditional, stigmatized corporate world that we were discussing what the word means there. So I think that's how I'm able to speak on, the value of traditional corporate structures and also the excitement of what's ahead and how to, attract and retain Gen Z. I think it's a generation that there's so much unknown. We don't know what they want. We don't know how to keep them. They're job hopping constantly. There's a lot of dissatisfaction. And it's interesting, like every company is just trying to appeal the process to them. So I think a few ways we know studies exist out there. 42% of Gen Z values knowing the company value and mission often, and like that alignment with that company mission over salary, which I thought was like an interesting stat. Additionally, I think just transparency across the board. They want transparency up front of what it's like working there. They want just like, we're so open with our emotions online, with our friends, very, very vulnerable. So how can you be transparent in a corporate setting that's traditionally not transparent at all? They gatekeep a lot of stuff. You're not really supposed to talk about these things at work. So how can you be transparent in small ways to appeal to Gen Z, and also offering them, the ability to try new things and be kind of entrepreneurs in their corporate space. Everyone's so obsessed with the side hustle. Everyone's so obsessed with their passion and doing things on the side. How can you offer that passion project within work and for them to be kind of an entrepreneur in the corporate space? So those are a few kind of tips I say and things I talk about when I go to these stages, but always learning. And it's interesting to see if it works.
And I mean, listening to this makes me want to be that person who can do all this. But I also encounter people who are old. I'm an old millennial, 82. So I encounter people who are older than me in the workplace. And even if I slightly go into that direction of being vulnerable and sharing more than they are used to, I see them getting uncomfortable. And then I have to kind of dial it back and sort of like, make it a fit again for them. And then I see them kind of warming up again and feeling like more comfortable. So what would you recommend for, to approach this? Because obviously the video is all about where there's a dysfunction, right? There's a conflict between the two. So how do you actually tell leaders that are obviously not Gen Z yet to approach this when they themselves feel uncomfortable about it?
It's a really hard line, and it's, you can't just all of a sudden become comfortable talking about these things. That takes years of therapy and other things outside of, just a transition. One thing I heard from, and it's easier applied at smaller companies and startups, my friend, he's a founder, Swish Goswami is his name. And he does a 50-person company, and they do paranoia sessions. I think they've rebranded because that word has a bit of a bad connotation as well. But where they just allow anyone to speak out on things that keep them up at night, worries about the company, things they don't agree with. And it's really interesting. And he said a lot of good has come from that, and just allowing a space of time for those conversations to happen, I think is helpful. From, okay, now we're in this session and now we're working, and we, those lines don't cross. So that's one way I've seen that's successful, but I obviously don't have the answer.
Wow. But may I throw that question at you? I've asked this many times on Remote Daily, and I can answer it myself. It's family, it's cash flow, because that kills most of small businesses. It's the team, and it's my own health. Those are the things that keep me up at night. Is there something that keeps you up at night that you want to share? Or do you just say, next question, please?
I mean, a lot of the things going on in the world keep me up at night. There's a lot of fear with things we're hearing right now. I think, I think having a platform this big and having this many eyes on you is scary. I think sometimes I get weird messages. Sometimes there's just things you can't avoid being a creator of this size. And people think they know you and think you're friends and think you owe them things. And, I love all of my followers and I feel so grateful to have a platform, but there are things that are scary sometimes that I don't about my privacy and safety for sure.
Does it happen to you yet that you are being recognized on the street and people come up to you?
Yeah, all the time. Yeah. And it's such an honor.
All the time.
People. Yeah. I think so. I mean, I got like 3 messages of, I saw you in my berries class, but I didn't say hi. But it just,
they didn't rescue you when you fell from the treadmill, though.
I know. Where were you when I was in a time of need? Yeah.
And so I wanted to come back to this, to the posting. I think we learned from you how you have the amazing ability and gift, together with your colleague, to go places, see something, and turn it into a story. And then you have something new to post. For people who are in maybe a different trajectory, maybe they just want to get started to post something on LinkedIn, and they have this kind of writer's block, and they're like, I don't know what to say. I don't have anything to say, which is a classic thing to think. You said in an interview recently, I think it was a Tom Ward show that Liz listened to, you mentioned people are so afraid to post anything on LinkedIn, but you recommend taking a less precious approach and just throw it out there. So I guess I'm asking a similar question than the one before. Is there something that you recommend to someone when they say, what should I post first when I go out there? You're getting approached, you said, a lot by people that are on TikTok already, and they ask you when to quit your job. I guess that's maybe next level. What about the people who are still silent and they're thinking about what do I have to contribute?
Mm-hmm. Well, first I'll say you don't have to post. You don't have to be a content creator, whether it's in written form or video form. And if it feels forced, you shouldn't do it. You are probably amazing at your job and you offer a ton of different things. The whole posting concept is very new. And it's just, if you're interested in it, the advice I give is the first step is posting. I think if I didn't, have the confidence to set up my camera and film myself making these bits when I had 0 followers, I would never be where I am today. And so the takeaway there is just trust yourself and know that, especially on LinkedIn, when you're talking about work, you work for 40 plus hours a week. It's your bread and butter. It's what it's your language. If that's something that, to me, it's not making a get ready with me video. It's not filming your workout. It's something that you're very comfortable talking about. And so posting about it is encouraged. And I think companies, as we're getting towards destigmatizing the word corporate, are excited when their employees talk about their work life, and, mostly in a positive way, but talk about what they know and share their knowledge as an SME in the space. And I think that's, it's just taking that leap is the hardest spot. You'll look at the text and read it a million times and just draft it and not post it. It's like, why not? So that's the advice I give.
And then afterwards, you pretend not looking at the likes and the comments, and you say, yeah, I just posted this, whatever.
Yeah, I got 2 likes on my first video, and one of them was my mom. And I'm here. You never know. And the likes, you have to think about: is that a currency that matters to you? Do you care about the likes? And it's hard to. A lot of I think X just released that they're going to hide likes or something, hide the performance of posts. And it's interesting, does that matter at the end of the day? Of course, for me as my job, yes, it matters now. But when I'm starting, no, it doesn't. We all have our jobs. We still will survive, so hopefully it doesn't keep you up at night.
And then there's the other more progressive example of companies that are now taking this approach very seriously and helping people inside the organization to become influencers and actually train them. Is that also something you are a part of with your company?
No, we didn't have an influencer program. I think United has a program in-house where some of their pilots are viral TikTokers and are their flight attendants. And so that's a good example of, I think, what you're talking about. My company, I was working in cybersecurity, and they found my videos. And I remember distinctly the CEO put time on my calendar and brought me into, like, we had a Zoom, and I thought I was getting fired. I thought it was over for me. And he was like, we want to move you into marketing. We want to see if you can apply some of these skills that you've, garnered on your own to B2B cybersecurity. And it was super interesting. It was an honor. I got a promotion, actually. So that wasn't, they're not asking me to be an influencer and promote it, but they were asking me to look at our social strategy and weigh in. And that was exciting.
Wow, they did exactly what you recommend, to connect with Gen Z, to take the entrepreneurial part of that person and elevate it and make the person bigger and better and more passionate about what they do, because you enhance their skills and what they're passionate about. Fascinating. Shout out to your former boss, whether he is married or not. We will discuss that later. I have a last question for you. What is next? Because you're obviously approached all the time now by companies. You're going to big events, red carpet stuff is happening. You have many people that reach out to you and want to know when they quit their job. Like, you are becoming a person that probably needs to be more than one person. Annie's here, shout out to you, who's helping you. And you recently founded a new company called Expand VA. What does that stand for?
Well, VA is virtual assistant. So it's a virtual assistant company where we pair people who want to help creators who need assistance with kind of the administrative burden of content creation, email, inbox, calendar, travel itineraries, all that. And so it's kind of a side hustle for people wanting a few extra hours in the week and creators and influencers needing help. So that's been really fun. I co-founded it with my roommate. So it's exciting to go upstairs and put on our co-founder hats instead of our let's watch Succession for 6 hours hats. And yeah, it's been great. It's been exciting.
Wow. So you have this company. You also, obviously we talked about it. You're on a lot of stages. You have acted in a YouTube show called Sales Are Dope. Do you want to give a pitch of that show? Like, what is that all about?
Oh, sure. So that was the show that I mentioned earlier when I was asked to go act in LA. That was the show. And it was written and produced by my friend Ross Pomerantz, who's Corporate Bro on Instagram and TikTok. He does very similar but very niche sales humor. And he has been writing the show for about 5 years, and he asked me to act in it. And it was so exciting to be in a true production setting and, get the makeup and the lighting and the crew. And I'm no longer alone in my room. I'm now with 50 people staring at me while I try to recite the line that I totally forgot and I'm winging it on. So the show was amazing. It's called Sales Are Dope. It is on YouTube, as you mentioned, if you want to check it out. 8 episodes, pretty digestible, like 10 minutes each. But yeah, what's next for me is, I think, I was really excited at the writing and production aspect of that show. I'm excited to hopefully write more long form content, whether that's on YouTube or, Netflix pays me millions of dollars to act. No, we'll see. That's maybe a little out of my range, but I've been getting into fashion, office workwear. Could I do a co-branded line with a company of Corporate Natalie X Madewell or something, and provide people with kind of the office basics? So I feel very blessed that I'm in a space in my career where I have the autonomy to blend kind of my passions and interests with what I do on a day-to-day basis. And I think I'm in a position right now where we're kind of reevaluating the strategy heading into next year.
Wow. Fascinating. I want to give a few minutes to audience questions. I'll start with the question. How does it feel being so vulnerable online? You're an inspiration, Natalie. What do you respond to that?
Wow, I'm honored. Did you write that? I'm
No.
flattered. I actually do think I'm really intentional about the vulnerability that I share. I think a lot of lifestyle creators, they're posting every second of their day. They're, their relationships, what their house looks, everything, everything about them. And I think that, like, that fear that I mentioned earlier keeps me from being that kind of constant live stream. So I'm very intentional about what I post and what I share and what I want to share with the world. And I think that helps keep me, like, mentally sane. Knowing that I have control over that, knowing that I could step away if needed. And thank you for calling me an inspiration. I'm honored. Okay. What kind of videos are your favorite to make? So I'm recently starting to get into, like, my morning routine videos that are super quick cut edits. of like me basically doing very mundane things, getting out of bed, going to my workout class, but it's like a very aesthetically edited video. And that's been fun because it's just new. But my favorite videos right now are, of course, the Gen Z series that we saw a little bit of earlier.
Why is that?
The Gen Z videos are just it flows off my tongue in a way that scares me. Like it's so easy and I love it. And it makes me laugh. Like I was laughing watching myself. Normally I cringe, but I really do enjoy the output of those videos.
And I have a third question here that I did not write. What's your best tip for getting work done remotely? Oh my God. We have had many conversations here on Remote Daily about this. So one thing that I really learned from experts here on the show was to, especially when you work and live in the same space, that you have a way to almost seal away any items that work is being done with. So there's people who put their laptop in a bag. There's people who have adjustable tables that they change before work. There's people who like try to have like a nook at home that they can like shut up with a curtain. So that's one thing that I've learned about, work and life intermingling, that you have a dedicated space and you seal off that space when work is done. Do you have any recommendations from your own experience on what makes you work better or work more happily from your bedroom where you are right now?
Yeah, I love that. Your workspace is so important. Like I light a candle every day. I have my setup that makes me feel very comfortable. I have my like aesthetic that I've worked so hard to curate, which is actually no color at all, just creams and whites. But it is important. It's like you're at this space for so long during your week and it can get so mundane that like having your little trinkets and your office space and having the separation between, like, I remember my friends in New York who had no space to put an office desk when COVID first hit, and they're literally sitting on their bed. And it's just so funny to think that like now your work from home, when we thought it was temporary, it's like, no, it's here to stay. You got to have your work from home space. Additionally, time blocking is super important, and allowing yourself to have those, like, for me, it's like in between moments of scrolling TikTok and Instagram and like consuming content, which is work in a way because I'm seeing the trends, but also I just like to laugh, get my serotonin boost. But like time blocking for that. And instead of like, oh my God, I just lost an hour of time, I was scrolling, I was sitting on my bed. It's like, no, I blocked 15 minutes to look at my phone and do whatever the hell I want. And that's, I can't blame myself for that. It was on the calendar.
Corporate Natalie, you have been such an amazing guest. Thank you very much for being on the show, for teaching us how to post things that roll off your tongue, to teach us to make the best out of the most dire moments in life, and to teach us to take a leap. And I'm so glad that you took the time today. This is for you, Natalie. This is for everybody in our community, from Rashad to Brandon to Jolie to Karis to Anne and so many others who joined us today. Thank you for being part of this community. Thank you for being part of the show. Before we play the final song for you, Natalie, next week on Remote Daily, David Spinks, one of the most prolific community building experts of our time, will be joining us on Remote Daily. I can't wait for this conversation about community building and the future of how that is going to pan out in these crazy, wild times that we live in. I'm glad that we had an hour of joy today together in a very serious moment. And I'm glad that you, Natalie, brought so much joy and humor and energy to this room. I really want to thank you. And I just wanted to ask you, before we end with music, Natalie, is there anything else you would like to share with us before we part ways today? What is your final word for the community?
Gosh, I mean, thank you for listening to me blab for an hour. I'm honored. I think we put in the chat, but if you like what you heard, follow me on, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. It's a lot more of this every single day. So that's what I'll say. Little plug.
Yes, we all want more. And here's Chalisa. Bye-bye. Take care.